Let me know if this sounds familiar. Well, boys, I'm changing out my CV shaft again this weekend. Yeah, it's the same one. Boots ripped open again. Hello and welcome to Gold Wrenching. Tonight, we're going to throw a CV shaft in this Sedona and find out what that squeak's all about. Can you see the problem? I'm going to show you guys a little trick a friend of mine taught me. An older mechanic years ago showed me this trick. I'll share it with you guys. To separate the lower ball joint, take a piece of chain, slide it around the control arm, like so. Get yourself a big giant bar like this one, or a short one with a piece of pipe on it. A big block of wood underneath the subframe. There we do. And pull down on it. Just like that. Now if it doesn't separate right away for you, just give her a couple whacks on the control arm here with a good heavy hammer, or on the knuckle here. Or you can stick a wedge in between the split on the lower part of the steering knuckle here and spread it open a little bit. That'll free it up for you. I had this out recently because this shaft I did in the summertime, the shaft was only 4 months old by the time it ripped wide open like this. Now, I don't know about you guys in the States or warmer climates. In Canada here, we're having a big problem with CV boots and rack boots. Pretty much any kind of rubber material like this. I think they've changed the recipe for this rubber here probably 10-15 years ago. I've been working in a tire shop for over 20 years and I've handled a lot of rubber, and I've noticed a difference, I think, and in the tubes and stuff like that. They're using a lot more synthetic rubber now than compared to natural rubber back in years ago, and it just doesn't hold up like the natural rubber does. It's just too hard, and in Canada here it gets cold and the plastic and rubber gets brittle, and it only goes around so many laps before it separates. And yeah, it's bullshit. You know, somebody should start up a rubber factory and start putting some natural rubber back into these things and save the frickin' planet. Save us from these garbage parts. Please. Somebody bring the rubber back. Bring the natural rubber. If you want to take like a spoon bar like I got here and try to get it in behind this the slip joint here. Find a good spot. A little tough on this one. You want to give it a quick jerking motion. This is what it looked like 4 months previous to this rip here. And here's a rack and pinion that I changed out the other day. And look at its boot. Guess how old this one is. About the same age. This one has 20,000 kilometers on it. Now we're getting warranty on this rack, but the labor isn't covered, so the customer is going to have to pay. And this is out of a Sedona like mine. It calls for 8 hours labor to change this thing out. And the reason why we called it is because it's actually clunking. There's a nylon bushing in here that supports the rack as it moves back and forth, and the rack actually lifts up and down within the housing, causing a clunk every time you go over a bump. And it also acts like a bad inner tie. Like if you had a bad inner tie rod, you end up getting cupping on the tires because there's all of a sudden now there's play in your steering system. And when you want to when you steer the rack back and forth, this is actually lifting up instead of pushing in and out. Now you want to use Vaseline to lubricate the splines here in this spring clip, or petroleum jelly, or whatever you want to call it. Anytime you're working in a transmission or a transaxle using ATF, you want to use petroleum jelly or Vaseline here as a lubricant, because it absorbs the ATF compared to regular grease. I'll show you. We'll do a little experiment. We'll put a drop of ATF on each pile here, and then we'll see what happens. You'll notice that on the grease pile, the ATF just runs off and soaks into the paper, whereas on the Vaseline, it actually absorbs it. So you want to put a fair amount around the spring clip here and try to center it in its groove so it goes in easy. And then you want to lubricate this part here and where the seal's going to ride right here. And then slip it in. It's going to take some pretty good force to get it in there usually. Now a lot of times these things will just slide right in with a little bit of a good little shove. And other times they fight you a little bit. So when they do fight you and you're on your own, I like to put it into the hub here and use a dead blow hammer. This will keep it steady and in line. And then you give it a whack on the end here. Use a dead blow hammer so you don't damage the threads and mushroom the end here. And she's in. Use your bar again to pull your control arm down. There she goes. Throw your pinch bolt back in. Now you throw your hub nut on. Now you want to torque these to spec to get the correct preload on your wheel bearing. You over tighten it and you're going to prematurely wear out your wheel bearing. Too loose, and then you might end up getting a little bit of play in your wheel bearing and prematurely fail. So you can tighten it up a little bit with your gun. Just give it a little love tap and then tighten it up the rest with your torque wrench. So that. The spec on a 2008 Kia Sedona like this one is between 177 and 199 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go 190. Now if you want, you can throw the wheel back on without the hubcap and let it down and tighten it up that way. Or you can get somebody to hit the brakes for you and tighten it up. Or you can use a big long stick and shove it into the brake pedal or a brake depressor like I got here. I got a nice little indent here for you to stake the nut so it doesn't back off. You take a punch and a hammer, line it up on the edge. Oh, hit your finger a couple times. There we go. And it should look like that when you're done. And your finger should look something like this. Then you want to torque the wheels to 80 foot-pounds. Now you always want to check your transmission fluid level after changing out your CV shaft. Especially when you know you lost some fluid like we did here. This little red dipstick here. Now the engine needs to be running while you check this one. And it'll tell you on the dipstick usually if they want it in park or neutral. This one doesn't say. We'll check it in park with it running. And watch out for the positive terminal here. It's so close, if you get it, if you touch that thing, it's going to spark on you and probably weld itself to the battery post. So before you check your transmission, you want to run it through the gears. Spend a couple of seconds in each one. Go back up to park before you check the level. You get an accurate reading. Perfect. Don't forget to clean up your mess after. Make it look like you weren't even in there. Blow it off. Well, that concludes tonight's episode. Now you can go change out your CV shaft. Hopefully a little longer than 4 months down the road after putting in the last one. And speaking of that, yeah, throw some comments down below. Let me know what's happening in your guys' area. If these boots are self-destructing all over the place or just here in Canada. I'd like to know what's going on out there. And anyways, have a good night. We'll see you next week.